The air in Hollomere hung thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, a small town cradled by jagged cliffs, and a restless sea that whispered secrets against the shore. It was the kind of place where everyone knew your name but not your story where. The fog rolled in like a curtain, hiding truths in plain sight. For Clara Henshaw, though, the fog wasn't just outside her window. It had settled into her life, her marriage, her bones. Clara was 34, with sharp green eyes that caught the light like sea glass and a quiet strength honed from years of running the town's only bookstore. She'd built a life here with Daniel, her husband of 8 years, a man whose easy smile and warm hands had once felt like home, but lately, those hands lingered elsewhere, and that smile didn't reach his eyes. She'd ignored the signs for months. The late nights at the boatyard he owned, the faint floral scent on his jacket that wasn't hers, the way he'd flinch when she asked about his day. Denial was a soft blanket until it wasn't. It started with a letter, not an email, not a text, but a real ink-smudged envelope slipped under the bookstore's door after hours. Clara found it that morning, the 22nd of March, 2025, while sweeping the hardwood floors, the dawn light spilling through the windows in golden shards. Her name was scrawled across the front in a hurried hand. Clara, no return address. Inside, a single line. He's not who you think he is. Check the ledger. Her pulse quickened as she turned it over in her hands, the paper trembling slightly. The ledger? Daniel kept meticulous records for the boatyard financials, repairs, shipments. It was his pride, his shield against the world. She'd never had reason to doubt it. Until now, by noon, Clara stood in the cramped office above the boatyard, the ledger spread open on Daniel's desk. The sea roared beyond the window, a restless beast mirroring her unease. The numbers didn't add up. Payments to a supplier she'd never heard of marred hundreds of dollars every week, buried under vague entries like miscellaneous parts. Her stomach twisted as she traced the dates. The payments started 9 months ago, right when Daniel began staying late, claiming the business was expanding. "Who the hell is El Marwood?" she muttered, her voice swallowed by the hum of the radiator. The door creaked open behind her. She spun, heart-lurching, to see Daniel framed in the doorway, tall, broad-shouldered, his dark hair tousled from the wind. His hazel eyes widened, then narrowed. "Clara, what are you doing here?" His tone was casual, but there was an edge to it, a crack in the facade. She held up the ledger, her fingers white-knuckled around its leather spine. "Care to explain this? Payments to someone I've never heard of. Hundreds every week. What's going on, Daniel?" He stepped closer, hands raised like she was a startled animal. "It's just business, babe. You know how it is suppliers. Odd jobs. Why are you digging through my stuff?" "Don't lie to me." Her voice shook, but she stood her ground. "I got a letter. Someone told me to look. Said, you're not who I think you are." His face changed, then paled, hardened, a flicker of something raw darting across it. "A letter? From who?" "I don't know," she snapped, slamming the ledger onto the desk. "But I'm starting to think I don't know you either." Silence stretched between them, heavy as the fog outside. Then his phone buzzed on the desk, a sharp, insistent sound. The screen lit up with a name. Lila. Clara's breath caught. Before he could grab it, she lunged, snatching the phone. The text preview glared up at her. "Missed you last night. When can we?" Daniel reached for her, but she stumbled back, clutching the phone like a lifeline. "Lila Marwood?" she whispered, the pieces snapping into place. "You've been paying her. For what, Daniel, for what?" "Clara, listen," he started, but she cut him off, her voice rising with a fury she hadn't known she possessed. "Don't. Just don't." Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. How long have you been lying to me?" He opened his mouth, closed it, then turned away, running a hand through his hair. "It's not what you think," he said finally, his back to her. "But you need to trust me." "Trust you?" She laughed, a brittle, broken sound. "After this?" Before he could answer, a sharp knock echoed from downstairs the boatyard's front door. Daniel tensed, glancing toward the sound. "I have to get that," he muttered, moving past her. "Daniel, don't you dare walk away," she called, but he was already gone, his boots thudding down the stairs. Clara stood frozen, the phone still in her hand, Lila's message searing into her mind. Then, a glint caught her eye's small key, half hidden under a stack of papers on the desk. She grabbed it, her heart pounding. It wasn't for the office or the house. It was old, tarnished, the kind that unlocked something forgotten. The knock came again, louder, insistent. Voices drifted up Daniel's, low and urgent, and another, unfamiliar, feminine. Clara's grip tightened on the key. Whatever he was hiding, she'd find it. She'd tear this lie apart piece by piece. Downstairs, the door slammed shut, and the silence that followed felt like a held breath. Clara stepped toward the window, peering through the fog, and saw Daniel outside, arguing with a woman-tall, red-haired, her face obscured by the mist. Then, the woman handed him an envelope, thick and bulging, and Clara's world tilted. What was in that envelope and what lock did this key fit? Clara's breath fogged the window as she watched Daniel and the red-haired woman, their silhouettes blurring in the mist, like ghosts. The envelope hung between them, a silent bomb ticking in his hands. Her fingers curled around the tarnished key, its edges biting into her palm. She didn't know what it opened yet, but she knew one thing. Daniel wasn't just hiding an affair. There was something bigger, something heavier, pulling him under and dragging her with him. The woman's voice rose, sharp and clipped, cutting through the damp air. "You're running out of time, Dan. She's asking questions." Clara strained to hear more, but the wind swallowed the rest, tossing it into the churning sea beyond the cliffs. Daniel shook his head, shoving the envelope into his jacket, his shoulders hunched like a man carrying a storm. Then the woman turned, her heels clicking against the gravel as she vanished into the fog, leaving him alone. Clara ducked back from the window, her mind racing. She's asking questions. Who was she? Lila? Someone else? And what did that envelope hold? Money? Blackmail? A confession? Her chest tightened as she glanced at the key again. Whatever it unlocked, it was her only lead. She wouldn't wait for Daniel to spin another lie. The office was a maze of clutter-filing cabinets, boat schematics, a coffee mug with a chipped rim. She started with the desk drawers, yanking them open one by one. Pens, receipts, a half-empty pack of gum. Nothing. The key was too small for the cabinets, too old for the modern locks on the boatyard's equipment. She paused, her gaze snagging on a wooden chest in the corner, half buried under a tarp. It was weathered, its brass latch rusted but intact, the kind of thing Daniel might have salvaged from a wrecked ship. Her pulse thudded in her ears as she crossed the room, the floorboards creaking under her boots. The key slid into the lock with a soft click, like a secret giving way. She lifted the lid, and the scent of mildew and old paper hit her a time capsule of forgotten things. Inside, a jumble of trinkets, a cracked compass, a faded photo of Daniel as a boy on a dock, and then her breath hit she'd a stack of letters tied with twine. The top one bore the same hurried handwriting as the note she'd found that morning. Clara. She tore the twine apart, her hands shaking. The first letter was dated 6 months ago. Dan, you can't keep this quiet forever. She deserves to know. Meet me at the Lighthouse L. Lila. Clara's stomach churned as she flipped to the next one, dated a week later. The money's not enough. If you don't tell her, I will. This ends now. The words blurred as her eyes stung. Money. Threats. A secret Daniel had buried so deep it festered. She dug deeper into the chest, shoving aside a rusted sextant, and found a small velvet pouch. Inside, a single gold ring, not hers, not Daniel's. It was delicate, engraved with tiny initials, L.M. Lila Marwood. Proof, cold and gleaming, that this wasn't just late nights or stolen glances. It was a life he'd built behind her back. Footsteps thudded up the stairs. Clara shoved the ring into her pocket and slammed the chest shut, just as Daniel burst in, his face flushed, the envelope still bulging under his jacket. "Who was that?" she demanded, standing to meet him, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. He hesitated, eyes flicking to the chest, then back to her. "A client. Needed a rush job on a hull repair." "Liar." She stepped closer, the ring burning a hole in her pocket. "I heard her, Daniel. She's asking questions." "Who's she talking about? Me? Lila?" His jaw tightened, a muscle twitching. "You're paranoid, Clara. This is ridiculous." "Then what's this?" She pulled out the ring, holding it up between them like a blade. The air went still, the only sound the distant crash of waves. Daniel's face crumpled not with guilt, but with something sharper, something like fear. "Where did you get that?" "Does it matter? It's hers, isn't it?" "Lila's." Her voice broke, but she pressed on. "You've been paying her off, hiding her, lying to me." "It's not what you think," he shouted, his hands balling into fists. "You don't understand." "Then explain it," she yelled back, tears spilling now. "Tell me why I'm holding another woman's ring, why you're sneaking around with envelopes and secrets." He took a step toward her, then stopped, his gaze darting to the window. "I can't. Not yet." "Why not?" she whispered, the fight draining from her. "Because if I do, you'll hate me." His voice cracked, raw and hollow, "and I can't lose you." Before she could respond, a sharp crack split the air, a gunshot, echoing off the cliffs. Daniel flinched, spinning toward the window, and Clara's heart seized. Outside, the fog swirled, hiding whoever lurked beyond the glass. "Stay here," he muttered, pulling the envelope from his jacket and shoving it into her hands. "Don't open it unless I don't come back." "Daniel, wait," she started, but he was already gone, the door banging shut behind him. Clara stood alone, the envelope heavy in her grip, the gunshot's echo ringing in her ears. Through the window she saw him sprint into the mist, a shadow swallowed whole. Then, a scream-high, piercing, unmistakably female cut through the silence, and the fog lit up with the flash of headlights. Who was out there and what had Daniel just run toward? Clara's breath caught in her throat as the scream faded, swallowed by the fog and the relentless roar of the sea. The headlights flickered through the mist, twin beams slicing the grey like knives, then vanished as quickly as they'd appeared. Her hands trembled around the envelope Daniel had thrust at her, its weight a tether to the chaos unfolding outside. "Don't open it unless I don't come back." His words clawed at her, but the urge to tear it open burned stronger with every second he didn't return. She stumbled to the window, pressing her palms against the cold glass. The boatyard below was a graveyard of shadow-shulking boat frames, tangled ropes, the skeletal outline of a cranial blurred by the fog. No sign of Daniel, no sign of the woman with the red hair, just the echo of that gunshot, lodged in her skull like a splinter. The ring in her pocket pressed against her thigh, a silent accusation. Lila Marwood. The letters. The money. And now this gunfire, and screams, and Daniel running into the dark like a man chased by his own ghost. Clara's mind spun, stitching fragments into a jagged tapestry. Had Lila been here, waiting in the fog? Was that her scream? Or was there someone tied to that envelope, to the secrets Daniel wouldn't speak? A low rumble broke her thoughts, the sound of an engine, guttural and close. She squinted through the window as a pickup truck emerged from the mist, its tires crunching gravel. It stopped near the boatyard's edge, where the cliffs dropped into the sea. The driver's door swung open, but no one stepped out. The headlights dimmed, then died, leaving the truck a hulking silhouette against the pale horizon. Clara's heart hammered. She couldn't wait here, frozen, while Daniel vanished into whatever mess he'd made. She shoved the envelope into her coat, grabbed the key from the desk, and bolted down the stairs, her boots pounding the warped wood. The boatyard smelled of salt and diesel, the air thick with damp. She paused at the door, peering into the fog. The truck sat motionless, its engine ticking as it cooled. No movement, no sound but the waves. "Daniel?" she called, her voice swallowed by the mist. Nothing. She stepped out, the gravel biting through her soles, and crept toward the truck. The closer she got, the more her stomach twisted. The driver's side window was down, the cab empty. A smear of something dark blood streaked the door handle. Her breath hitched as she circled to the truck bed. Empty too, except for a tarp, bunched and heavy, like it was hiding something. She reached for it, her fingers brushing the rough fabric, when a hand clamped over her mouth from behind. She thrashed, elbows flying, but the grip tightened, an arm pinning her against a solid chest. A voice hissed in her Urlo, female, unfamiliar. "Stop! You don't want to see what's under there." Clara froze, her pulse a drumbeat. The hand eased off her mouth, and she spun to face her captora woman, mid-30s, with cropped black hair and eyes like storm clouds. She wore a leather jacket, scuffed and wet, and held a flashlight in her other hand, its beam pointed at the ground. "Who are you?" Clara demanded, stepping back, her voice shaking but defiant. "Someone who's trying to keep you alive. the woman said, glancing toward the truck. "You're Clara, right? Daniel's wife?" Clara's throat tightened. "Where is he? What's happening?" The woman's jaw clenched, her gaze darting to the cliffs. "He's in trouble! Big trouble! That gunshot? It wasn't meant for him, not yet, but they're closing in." "They? Who's they?" Clara's hands balled into fists. "And how do you know my name?" The woman hesitated, then flicked the flashlight up, illuminating her face. A scar traced her left cheek, faint but jagged. "Name's Tessa. I've been watching your husband for weeks. He's mixed up with people he shouldn't be, people who don't like loose ends." "Lila," Clara whispered, the name a blade on her tongue. Tessa's eyes narrowed. "You know about her?" "I know she's been bleeding him dry. I found letters. A ring." Clara's voice hardened. "Is she out there? Did she shoot someone?" Tessa's laugh was short, bitter. "Lila's not the trigger-pulling type. She's the bait, but you're too close." She nodded at the envelope bulging in Clara's coat. "What's that?" "Daniel gave it to me. Said not to open it unless." Clara stopped, the words choking her. "Unless he's dead," Tessa finished, her tone flat. "Smart man. Dumb choices." A distant shout cut through the fog. Daniel's voice, raw and desperate. "Clara, run!" She whirled toward the sound, but Tessa grabbed her arm, yanking her back. "Don't. You go out there. You're done. He's buying you time." "Time for what?" Clara snapped, wrenching free. "I'm not leaving him." "You don't have a choice," Tessa said, her voice low and urgent. "Not if you want answers. That envelope hates your leverage. Open it, and you'll see why they're after him, why they'll come for you next." Another shout, closer now, then the crunch of footsteps, multiple sets, heavy and fast. Tessa cursed under her breath, pulling a gun from her jacket. "Decide, Clara. Now." Clara's hands shook as she stared at the envelope, then at the fog where Daniel's voice had faded. The footsteps grew louder, shadows shifting in the mist. She tore the seal open, her breath ragged, and pulled out a single sheet of paper, a bank statement, numbers swimming in the dim light. A deposit, dated yesterday, $500,000. Source, Marwood Holdings. Below it, a handwritten note in Daniel's scrawl, "Forgive me, it was for us." The world tilted. $500,000? From Lila's family? For what? Tessa's gun clicked as she raised it, her eyes locked on the approaching shadows. "Time's up," she said. "Run, or we're both dead." But before Clara could move, the fog parted and a figure emerged, Daniel, blood streaking his face, his eyes wide with terror. Behind him, two men in dark coats, guns drawn. And then a third, silhouetted, red-haired, unmistakable. Clara's world narrowed to the blood on Daniel's face, the glint of guns in the fog, and Lila Marwood standing there like a spectre summoned from her nightmares. The bank statement crumpled in her fist, its ink-stained confession, $500,000. Forgive me, it was for us, a lifeline and a noose all at once. The air was electric, thick with salt, and the metallic tang of fear. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, as the two men in dark coats flanked Daniel, their faces shadowed, but their intent clear. "Clara!" Daniel's voice cracked, his hands raised, a smear of red trailing from his temple. "Get out of here now!" "Shut up," one of the men barked, jabbing a pistol into Daniel's ribs. The other turned his gun toward Clara and Tessa, his eyes cold beneath a low-brimmed cap. Tessa shifted beside her, her own gun steady, her voice a low growl. "Drop it, or I paint the gravel with your brains." The man smirked, unfazed. "Big talk. You're outnumbered." Lila stepped forward then, her red hair catching the faint light like a flame. She was striking tall, sharp-featured, her coat tailored and pristine despite the chaos. Her hazel eyes locked on Clara, and for a moment, something flickered, their regret maybe, or defiance. "This doesn't have to get messy," she said, her voice smooth, practiced. "Give us the envelope, Clara, and you walk away." Clara's grip tightened on the paper, her nails digging into her palm. "Walk away? After you've been screwing my husband and bleeding him dry? Who are you people?" Lila's lips twitched, a ghost of a smile. "You don't know the half of it. Daniel's been playing a dangerous game. That money." She nodded at the envelope. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" Clara shot back, her voice trembling with rage. A payoff? Blackmail? Tell me why my husband's got blood on his face and guns pointed at him." Daniel struggled against the man holding him, his eyes wild. "Clara, don't listen to her. I didn't want this." "Quiet," Lila snapped, her calm cracking. She turned back to Clara, softening her tone. "That $500,000? It's a drop in the bucket. My family Marwood Holdings owns half the shipping lanes on this coast. Daniel thought he could buy his way in, impress me, save his little boatyard from sinking. But he didn't read the fine print." "Fine print?" Clara's mind raced, the pieces refusing to fit. "What are you talking about?" Tessa cut in, her gun still trained on the men. "She means he's in debt to them. Big debt. That money's not a windfall, it's a leash. Right, Lila?" Lila's eyes narrowed, but she didn't deny it. "He made a choice, a stupid one, and now he's a liability." The man with the cap took a step closer, his gun steady. "Enough talking. Hand it over, or we start shooting." Clara's heart pounded as she glanced at Daniele's face pale, his shirt torn, a man unraveling before her eyes. The husband she'd loved, fought with, built a life with, and now a stranger drowning in lies. She held up the bank statement, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. This is what you want? Proof he's in your pocket?" "Clara, no," Daniel started, but the second man slammed the butt of his gun into his stomach, doubling him over with a groan. "Stop it!" Clara shouted, lunging forward, but Tessa yanked her back. "Don't," Tessa hissed. "They'll kill him either way." Lila tilted her head, studying Clara like a predator sizing up prey. "Smart friend you've got. Give me the paper, and I'll call them off. You and Daniel can limp back to your little life, for now." "For now?" Clara's laugh was bitter, raw. "Until you bleed him for more? Until you ruin us completely?" "It's not personal," Lila said, shrugging. "It's business." The fog thickened, curling around them like a shroud, and Clara's mind spun. Business. Betrayal. Blood. She could hand it over, buy time, but what then? Daniel's secrets were a hydrocurt at one head, and another would grow. And Tessa, whoever she was, knew more than she was saying. The scar on her cheek, the gun in her hand, the way she'd appeared out of nowhere, an ally or another player in this twisted game. Before she could decide, a new sound pierced the misty, low, guttural roar, mechanical and close. Headlights flared again, not from the truck, but from the cliff's edge. A second vehicle, black SUV, barreled through the fog, tires screeching as it skidded to a stop. The men with guns tensed, exchanging glances, and Lila's composure faltered. "Who's that?" the capped man demanded, swinging his weapon toward the SUV. The doors flew open, and three figures emerged, two men in tactical gear, and a woman, older, her silver hair pulled tight, her presence commanding. She strode forward, her boots crunching gravel, and fixed Lila with a stare that could shatter glass. "You're late, Marwood," the woman said, her voice steel wrapped in velvet. "And sloppy. This ends tonight." Lila paled, her hands clenching. "Eleanor, Save it," the woman Eleanor cut her off, then turned to Clara, her gaze piercing. "You, Henshaw's wife. You've got something that belongs to me." Clara's stomach dropped. The bank statement. The envelope. But why did this woman want it? And how did she know Daniel? Tessa leaned close, her whisper urgent. "That's Eleanor Marwood, Lila's mother, head of the whole damn empire. We're in deeper than I thought." The tactical men raised their rifles, and Eleanor's voice rang out, cold and final. "Give it to me, Clara, or I burn this boatyard to the ground with everyone in it." Daniel coughed, spitting blood onto the gravel, his eyes pleading with Clara. "Don't do it," he rasped. "They'll kill us anyway." The fog closed in, the guns gleamed, and Clara stood at the center of it all, the crumpled paper in her hand, a ticking clock. Eleanor's men took a step closer, and Lila's mask slipped, revealing raw panic. What did Clara have that could bring an empire to its knees, and would she live long enough to find out? The fog pressed in like a living thing, muffling the world as Clara stood frozen, the bank statement trembling in her grip. Eleanor Marwood's ultimatum hung in the air, "Give it to me, or I burn this boatyard to the ground with everyone in it," and the weight of it crushed her. Daniel's blood-streaked face, Lila's fractured composure, Tessa's steady gun, and the rifles of Eleanor's men formed a tableau of betrayal and desperation. The sea roared below the cliffs, a primal chorus to the chaos. Clara's eyes darted to Daniel, crumpled on the gravel, his breath ragged. "They'll kill us anyway," he'd said, and she believed him. Not because of the guns, but because of the man she'd loved, the man who'd hidden this abyss of lies. The $500,000 wasn't salvation, it was a shackle, binding him to the Marwood's empire. And now, Eleanor took a step closer, her silver hair glinting like a blade in the dim light. "Time's up, Clara! That paper's a loose thread! I don't tolerate loose threads!" Clara's throat burned as she met the older woman's gaze. "What's it worth to you? Proof Daniel took your money? Or proof you're scared of what he knows?" Eleanor's lips thinned, but she didn't flinch. "Clever girl. He knows too much about our roots, our deals. That statement ties him to us. Without it, he's just a desperate fool with a failing boatyard." Lila shifted, her voice tight. "Mother, let me handle this." "You've handled enough," Eleanor snapped, silencing her. "You let him get too close, Lila. This is your mess." The words stung Clara like salt in a wound. Lila and Danielle too close. The ring, the letters, the payments. A love affair twisted into a transaction. But Eleanor's presence, the guns, the money, it was bigger than infidelity. It was power, greed, a dynasty teetering. Tessa's grip on her gun tightened, her whisper sharp in Clara's ear. "She's bluffing about the fire. They need this place, the boatyard's a front. Smuggling, maybe worse. That statement's your way out." Clara's mind raced. A front. The ledger's odd payments, the late nights, the chest of secrets. Daniel hadn't just cheated, he'd sold his soul. And hers? She glanced at the crumpled paper. Marwood Holdings, $500,000. A leash, yes, but also a weapon. "All right," Clara said, her voice steadying as she held up the statement. "You want it? Take it." Eleanor's eyes gleamed, a predator sensing victory. She gestured to one of her men, who stepped forward, rifle lowered. But Clara didn't move. Instead, she pulled the tarnished key from her pocket, the key to the chest upstairs, and dangled it beside the paper. "Except," she continued, "this comes with it. Proof of everything Daniel's been hiding. Letters, names, deals. You burn us, and it burns you too." Eleanor froze, her composure cracking. "What letters?" "Ask your daughter," Clara said, nodding at Lila. "She wrote them, threatening him, begging him. You think this statement's the only thread? I've got a whole tapestry upstairs." Lila's face drained of color, her hands clenching. "She's lying." "Am I?" Clara cut in, her voice rising. "I found your ring, Lila. Your notes. You pulled him in, and now you're scrambling to clean it up." "But you can't. Not without me." Daniel coughed, dragging himself upright, his eyes locked on Clara. "Don't do this," he rasped. "They'll never let you go." "They already have," Clara said, her gaze hard. "You did that, Daniel, not them." The man with the rifle hesitated, glancing at Eleanor, who stood rigid, calculating. The fog swirled, the sea growled, and for a moment, the world held its breath. Then Tessa moved fast, silence winging her flashlight into the nearest man's skull. He crumpled with a grunt, and chaos erupted. Gunfire cracked, sharp and deafening. Tessa tackled Clara to the ground as bullets tore through the air. Daniel shouted, diving for cover behind the truck. Eleanor barked orders, her men firing blindly into the mist. But Tessa was a shadow, rolling to her feet and returning fire. One of the tactical men staggered, clutching his leg, and Lila screamed, dropping to her knees. Clara scrambled up, the statement and key still in her hands, and ran it toward the boatyard, but the cliffs. The fog swallowed her, her boots slipping on wet stone as she reached the edge. Below, the sea churned, dark and endless. She turned, seeing shapes in the mist. Eleanor's fury, Tessa's fight, Daniel's betrayal all crashing together. She held the paper over the drop, the wind tugging at it. "Come get it!" she yelled, her voice raw. "Or it's gone!" Eleanor emerged, gun in hand, her face a mask of rage. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," Clara said, chest-heaving, "but you'll regret it more." She let go. The paper fluttered, caught by the wind, and vanished into the sea. Eleanor's scream was lost to the waves as she lunged, too late. Clara clutched the key, her last card, and bolted back into the fog, Tessa's gunfire covering her retreat. She didn't stop until she reached the bookstore, her sanctuary, its wooden door slamming shut behind her. The chest's secrets, the keys promised they were hers now. Daniel was alive, maybe, but the man she'd married was gone. The Marwoods would come for her, she knew that. But she'd be ready. Outside, the fog thickened, and the sea whispered its approval. Hollowmere wasn't done with its secret, sir, with Clara Henshaw.